Alright, so it's been a little over 3 months since Season 1 of the Ahsoka Disney Plus series wrapped up, and one of the main criticisms of the series is the characterization of Sabine becoming a Jedi, how it ruins her integrity as a Mandalorian who has previously never needed to rely on the Force, now has to basically do anything and everything with it. That being said, some of the themes that the Ahsoka series explored were quite similar to another game that we all love, Knights of the Old Republic 2. And in said game, a similar thing happens whereby your entire party ends up becoming Jedi if you were to take the path of the light side, and it actually somewhat works. So an interesting point of discussion will be, why does one work while the other doesn't? With the way an RPG works, they have a bit more leeway and flexibility for the plot. While the intended end goal is that your shipmates in KOTOR 2, Ethan Ren, Mira, Visas Ma, Brianna, Mikhail, all of them becoming Dark Jedi or Jedi. You, as the main character, ultimately have the say in what their fate is. They can either choose to follow the ways of the Force, or to just remain as they are. While Sabine being a Jedi, that's ultimately the showrunner's decision, no one else's. And that lack of choice is what will piss off a lot of people who view it as a bad choice, cause you won't really be able to rub it off as easily as you do a role-playing game. It not only has consequences for the character going forward, but also ruins the things that came before, such as the years of build-up that we have seen of Sabine. If KOTOR 2 had a flaw, it was a one-time-off thing. None of these characters appeared before or since, but everybody loved it. Whereas, there are those who enjoyed Rebels and the Clone Wars who didn't really like how Sabine was handled in the show, while there are those who would absolutely love it. But there's a huge divide, and one storytelling error here has a larger impact in the entire franchise than a game taking place outside of main continuity. Actually, one of the main arguments for Sabine's Force sensitivity is that he has been hinted a lot since Rebels, and some may even mention that George Lucas' original vision was that the Force lives in all things, and all people can experience it one way or another with enough training. In the case of the Ahsoka show, I don't really buy it because Sabine's skill set has always revolved around her capabilities as a Mandalorian warrior. I do agree that the Force is in all things, and that it might work to some degree within people like Han Solo. Heck, even Obi-Wan's midichlorian count wasn't the highest, and he became quite the Jedi hero of his era through pure training and experience. But that took years. The closest thing in KOTOR 2 you can compare Sabine to is Mira the Bounty Hunter. They were both Mandalorian, who will later be trained as Jedi. Why does Mira get a free cut of being a Jedi? Well, she has experienced the echoes of the Force before, when she lost her kin during the Battle of Malachor 5. And afterward, her affinity to these echoes allowed her to track her targets as a bounty hunter. That is what opened her to the way of the Jedi, to become a student under the Exile's tutelage. For Sabine's case, it's really hard to justify that simply because it was never a part of her past. The Ahsoka show and Knights of the Old Republic, as I mentioned earlier, share some really similar things. The wounds of losing loved ones, overcoming them, the exile, figuratively or literally. They show the broken state of our characters at their lowest emotional points. That being said, those wounds that Sabine bore in her heart are pretty much absent of the Force, meaning they could have just been as easily a part of her, even without the whole part of Force sensitivity. Whereas, for the characters of KOTOR 2, the Force is a crucial part of their stories. All their origins and their trauma are in one way or another connected to the Battle of Malachor, an echo in the Force, the screams of countless lives lost. Them picking up the way of the Jedi is a means for them to learn to walk a path free from those wounds. Whereas for Sabine's, it just feels like it's a sore blister sticking out. The abilities of a Jedi, the Force sensitivity, the way it was portrayed, made it such that they are irrelevant to her themes or her character development as a whole. Between the end of Rebels Season 4 to the live-action Ahsoka series, there is a huge time jump of decades. Many things have changed for our characters. the state of the galaxy, their place in said galaxy, their age, and even their hair. Very different. There are many questions and blanks we are left to answer and fill in for ourselves. And it makes things even more confusing, even for those who are familiar with the lore of Rebels and the Clone Wars. Adding to that, there are only so many things you can explain or develop in the 8 short episodes. And so many things have to be implied or told about the character rather than shown. Whereas in KOTOR 2, you have quite a few hours of playthrough from start to end. Plenty of time to talk to each and every character, to get to know their history, and see how they change as they journey along with you. That is a character development that is actually shown. Mira at the beginning shows a cold shoulder, thinking nothing of the Force. But finally, when she hears the echoes in Nar Shaddaa, the ebb of life, it gave her reason to seek the way of the Jedi, of peace. Though I do acknowledge that there is some character development in Sabine, having her own arc to find the trust with Ahsoka once again. But that's a completely different point. I'm not gonna argue with anyone about why the show is or isn't good. These are just my 2 cents, and I feel like it's quite a fair criticism of the show. It wasn't half as bad, but with so little time given, the plot and the characters were just bogged down to the point where it just failed to live up to its expectations. So that's it for today. If you would like to see stuff related to Star Wars, The Old Republic, and artificial intelligence, do check out the rest of my channel. Cheers!